Hey, I'm Shaman. Who are you?
I'm Yolanda.
And we're the Connected Relationship.
We are coming live,
Even,
finally.
even through some technical difficulties
Big time
that we were
technical
having.
difficulties
Yeah.
today, but that's okay.
So I was saying a minute ago,
You were
before we got
rudely,
dropped,
rudely interrupted.
I think I need to rotate my shirts more often because I went back and looked at some of these videos and I'm wearing this shirt every other video.
We were sitting down and he was like this. Like, what are you doing? He said, I'm trying to hide the front of my shirt.
Apparently I like this shirt.
Well,
On what we normally do this on Friday, right? So this must be the Friday shirt.
it is the Friday shirt, and you're welcome. I got you that shirt.
Yeah, I
It's a
like this
Christmas
shirt.
gift.
Anyway,
Yeah.
we're here today to talk about self-care in your
We are.
relationship.
What do we have to say about self-care?
It would just figure the dogs would bark and
Yeah.
the world would go crazy on a day this is literally our fourth try
Wait
doing
a
this
minute.
video.
It is a full moon. It's
Right.
like a blue moon.
I don't
Something.
know.
I don't know. Some kind of something is happening. So there you go. Self-care in your relationship.
It's 2020.
All right, hang in there with us. We do have.
We have some points we're gonna get across.
We do. We do.
Anyway, self-care probably this year is more important than ever, right? I mean,
Oh,
there's
yeah.
stress, there's anxiety, there's
Yeah.
6 months of the world's gonna end, or 9 months, or however many months it's been now.
Months and months.
Election craziness, all of this, right?
Full moon.
So, I think probably a few years ago we started kind of implementing more self-care in our lives. Mostly, I think, as a result of work stress and just busyness of life, and how can I kind of relax a little bit, so we kind of started this journey of self-care, and you kind of picked up paddleboarding.
Yeah. So it started with yoga.
Yeah, I was gonna say
Started
yoga,
with yoga, and it's changing some of our
eating habits.
eating habits.
Yeah.
And then, along the way, I started paddleboarding, which was really amazing. I hadn't really had a hobby
And
prior to that.
I was kind of doing a lot of hiking and camping and getting out, and I kind of like nature and wilderness.
Yeah.
And kind of as we've kept doing that, it begets more, right?
It does. It does. And so there were times that we would do that individually, and then
Right.
times that we would do some of those things together.
Right.
And I've been meditating for a number of years now, and that was part of my own self-care. And then eventually
Right, I was gonna say, and then this year, I've picked it up
Mm-hmm.
early in the year, and I think it's probably been the one saving grace that's got me through 2020.
Same.
Which has been cool.
Yeah.
But I've noticed that as we've done this, as we've continued to explore self-care in our own lives, it's become a relational thing.
It has. And again, it's still our individual practices.
Right.
But then there are times that we come together and do yoga or paddleboard or hike or
Right.
Even meditate.
Even
kind of
meditate, right?
Together.
Sometimes we just sit on the floor and have our own meditation practices, doing our own, but just kind of in the presence of each other. But I think that has really it continues to grow that in us.
It does. Well, for me, I'll just speak from my experience. These practices allow me to kind of step into a better version of myself, or the best version of myself possible, given situations.
Yeah, I mean, I think
I
it
like
helps.
to think that.
I think they have a lot of helps. I mean, it's stress relief,
Right.
whether it's exercise or meditation, all these things.
Right.
It's focus.
Right.
Right. It kind of helps bolster creativity.
Yeah. And
know?
it just gives you kind of that space.
Yeah.
To not be so reactive. For me, it gives me space to not be so reactive and to not take things so seriously, because I have a tendency, that's kind of my personality.
Right. And I think as we've kind of gone through this and we've done this individually, it's vastly improved our relationship. And I think there's something to that to discuss kind of in this format, that if you don't have a self-care practice, I think it's something that grows
Yes.
Like, as you start doing it and you start changing the way you look at things and start changing the way you feel, and whether it's you physically feel and mentally feel and you feel sharper and all that kind of stuff, you want to do more things. It challenges you. Oh, wow, what else could I do? You know? And then it's, well, what can we do together? And then it's, we're walking the dogs and having a conversation about, hey, I was meditating the other day and thinking about this, or this come to mind, or whatever, you know. Those things draw you closer.
They do. They do. It has been an interesting dynamic to kind of experience over the past few years. Just that different. And I think it's even a deepening like spiritual connection when we do these things.
Right.
So it's just a different nuance of relationship that we don't necessarily really think of or even talk about.
So I think it lends itself to ask, what other self-care practices are people doing?
Yeah, yeah. These are just things that we've stumbled upon.
I mean, we hike, we paddleboard, we meditate, we walk the dogs every day, pretty much, and more often than not, it's together.
Especially since COVID.
Right. Yeah. I feel like I have a pretty healthy prayer life. That's a self-care practice. And I know people love to go to the gym. There's all kinds of things. I don't know that sitting on a couch watching Netflix is so much self-care practice, but maybe.
Well, sometimes I think it can be.
That's like veg out time.
I think that those things can happen on a continuum. Like on one extreme, it can be numbing and avoiding, and the other extreme, we've watched some shows together that have been great connecting points for us. We've watched some mindless things too.
Right.
Yeah.
But so I think that's the challenge. Like, what do you do for self-care, and what can you double down on that for self-care? And if you're not doing self-care, what do you have interest in kind of challenging yourself to explore and kind of watch how that grows as you do it?
And I think for me, the definition of self-care are those things that help me like regulate my nervous system, like calm my nervous system, and give me more bandwidth.
Right. Yeah, I think anything that kind of helps you do that is kind of considered healthcare, and I think it's a broad definition.
Sure,
and it's a broad spectrum of things
what
that you
works
do.
for one person doesn't work for other people.
Absolutely, because we don't even carry a lot of the same interests. So, sometimes we're like, "What are you reading?" I'm reading this. Oh God, that sounds terrible. I'd rather drill a hole through my head.
It's like I'm reading zombie apocalypse books.
And you're like, I'm reading blah 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 on the psychology of blah 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 blah, and I'm like,
yeah, true.
So,
what's our challenge then?
I'm asking, what do you guys do for self-care? And if you don't, what are you interested in doing for self-care?
Yeah, what piques your interest, and following your curiosity, I think, is a big piece of it.
Right, I think that's the challenge today. Follow that curiosity so that as you kind of walk through that, and then see what it does in your relationship. Because as you start a self-care practice and your partner's like, wait a minute, I want to do something.
Yeah, it is kind of an invitation for your partner.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
I started doing a little bit of yoga about 10 years ago in graduate school. And it just has kind of built from there. So.
And now we both go multiple nights a week. So.
Yeah, it's been good.
You guys have a good week.
Have a good one.